NISD, or the Norwich Institute for Sustainable Development, coordinates transdisciplinary research and engagement across the institutions of the Norwich Research Park and with partners nationally and internationally to address issues around global food security and sustainability. In this UN year of artisanal fisheries and aquaculture, we have focused part of our efforts on aquatic food systems, hosting World Food Prize winner Shakuntala Haraksingh Tilsted earlier this year, who's also with us today, and Eddie Allison, Director of Research of World Fish last year. Also meetings with our local partners here, the CFAS, or the Center for Sustainable Use of the Seas, the Water Security Research Center, the Quadrum, and the Earlham Institutes on the Norwich Research Park. As we come to the end of this year and also reflect on some of the key events in November, we had the COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, and also World Fisheries Day last week on 21st of November. We notice that women's voices from the fishing sectors are still not being heard enough, especially in policy circles. This is despite women constituting almost 40% of the workforce in this sector. To share their deep insights on the challenges confronted by women in the small scale fishery sector today, but also the innovative solutions and networks that they have been finding and forming across the global south. We have some of the women leaders from the fishery sector from South Asia and also East and West Africa with us today. So welcome to all of you. While it is an online event, we really hope that this can be as participatory as possible within this format, of course, given the limitations of this format. So we would really encourage each of you to use the chat box to introduce yourselves to us and to each other and share any relevant information or reports and so on during the course of the next 1.5 hours, the time we have together. Do also post any questions that you may have for the speakers as you listen to them and as we go along, because we do have a Q&A session and a facilitated discussion after the initial presentations from our 4 country speakers. We will be recording this event and making this publicly available afterwards. And given that this is a discussion across cultures and languages, if you aren't speaking, we would really appreciate if you could keep your mics muted. But if you are speaking or asking a question, we would really request you also to turn on your cameras, just so to improve communication. We also welcome a few journalists whom we have on this call, and we really appreciate your support in taking forward some of these voices in the wider media. So without further ado, I would like to start the program now and welcome our first speaker, that is Dr. Velvaji, who is joining us from Tamil Nadu in India, in southern India. Dr. Velvaji is the director of the Fish for All Training Center of the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, Chennai, and works with fisher women and fishing communities in Tamil Nadu, but also beyond across South India. She will show us first a short video from some of the women she has been working with. We are very thankful for her for making this video specifically for the event, as the local fisher women speak in Tamil, and we realized that translations might have taken much longer. And thereafter, Velvaji will tell us also a little bit about her own work and interventions in working with women to find solutions to the problems they face. So over to you, Velvaji. You have about 10 minutes time.
Natisa, you please screen the video first and then I will.
Yes, I will do that now. Thank you, Velvaji. Here.
போய் மீன் வாங்கிட்டு வந்தால் ஒரு நாள் முற்றிலும் அதை கீறி பதை பண்ணி வச்சுருந்தாலும் இந்த மலை மப்பில் அதை வந்து எப்படி பதை பண்ணி வச்சுருந்தாலும் அது வந்து நஷ்டமாக போயிடும். எப்படி வேண்டால் பூச்சி வச்சிடும். பூச்சி வச்சுட்டா அது வந்து சங்காயத்துக்கு தாங்க கொட்ட முடியும். நாங்கள் வந்து 3000 4000 நஷ்டம் வந்துடும். அதில் வந்து 10,000 ரூபாய்க்கு வாங்கிட்டு வந்தால் இல்லை 4000 5000 நஷ்டம் வந்துடும் ஒரு நேரத்தில். பாதிக்கு பக்கம் தான் அதை போட முடியும். 4 பேர் 3 பேர் கூட சேர்ந்து பண்ணுவோம் நாங்கள் அந்த தொழில். இங்கேருந்து ஒரு டெம்போ பிடிச்சி போய் காரைக்காலில் போய் மீன் வாங்கிட்டு வந்து இங்கே கீறி அலசி உப்பு வச்சு மக்கானாலும் அதை அலசி தாம்மா அதை படுத்தி வைக்கணும். வெய்ய காட்டினா அது வந்து நல்லா காய வச்சு எடுத்துப்போம். நாங்கள் வந்து அதில் 1000 2000 இருக்கும் எங்களுக்கு. அதில் 2 பேர் வாங்கிட்டு ஏமாத்துறவங்களும் இருக்கிறாங்க. அந்த நஷ்டத்தையும் சத்தம் போட்டு பார்ப்போம். அங்கே எழுதி கொடுத்துருவோம், இங்கே எழுதி கொடுத்துருவோம்னு சொல்லுவோம். அப்பயும் எங்கள்கிட்ட கொடுக்க மாட்டாங்கம்மா. அவங்களா எப்போ இஷ்டப்படுறாங்க அப்போ தாம்மா கொடுப்பாங்க. அந்த வியாபாரம் பண்ணிவிட்டு மிச்சப்படுற கருவாடை வண்டி இறக்கி விட்டு வந்துடுவாங்க. மிச்சப்படுற கருவாடை அங்கே அடிக்கடைக்கே வந்து ரொம்ப நஷ்டத்துக்கு அடிமட்டத்துக்கு அவங்க கேட்பாங்க. அவங்கள்ட்ட கொட்டி கொடுத்துட்டு தான் வரணும். பஸ்ஸுக்கு நீ அள்ளி எங்களால் தூக்கிட்டுலாம் வர முடியும். ஏதோ நாங்கள் ஒரு நேரம் தான் இப்போ சம்பாதிக்கலாம். ஒரு நேரம் இந்த வாடகைனாலலாம் சம்பாதிக்க முடியாது. ஒரு அப்பு சீசனில் வந்து மழை மப்பில் அது ரொம்ப நஷ்டமாக போயிடும். எங்களுக்குன்னு வைக்க ஒரு இடம் படம் கிடையாது. அப்படியெல்லாம் இருந்து நாங்கள் காலத்தை ஓட்டிகிட்டு இருக்கிறோமா. இப்போதைக்கு வயசாகிடுச்சு. எங்களுக்கு நடுமுது வலி வேற. இப்படி உட்காந்து வியாபாரம் பண்ணி எங்களுக்கு நம்ம தான் பிழைக்க போகிறோமோ தெரியல. அப்படி தான் இருந்து காலத்தை ஓட்டிக்கிட்டு இருக்கிறோம். 24 மணி நேரம் நடக்கணும். நடந்து கஷ்டம்னா அழுவனா தாங்காத கஷ்டம் தாங்காத அழுக. பொம்பளை பிள்ளைகிட்டு படாத எங்கள் வீட்டுக்காரங்க இல்லை கெடுத்துட்டாங்க. நான் ஒண்டி தான் இதை வியாபாரம் பண்ணி என் வகுத்த வளர்ப்பேன். நான் காரைக்காலுக்கு மீன் வாங்க போவேன். 1 மணிக்கு முழிச்சு போய் மாயிரம் வந்துடுவேன். 3 மணிக்கு 6 மணிக்கு வடகரை போவேன். விற்கிற இடத்துக்கு நடந்து கால் முடியல. காலுக்கெல்லாம் வீங்கி போச்சு. என்னால் நடக்க முடியாது. கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமாக எடுத்துக்கிட்டு போய் விற்கிற இடத்துல கொண்டு விற்றுட்டு வந்து கிடச்சா கொஞ்சம் இருக்கும் எடுத்துக்கிட்டு போய் கிராமத்துக்கு போய் கிராமத்தில் விற்றுட்டு 5 மணிக்கு பஸ் ஸ்டாண்டுக்கு வருவேன். கொஞ்சம் மொதல் கட்டி கூடப்பட்டி அலசி போட்டு 5 மணி பஸ்ஸுக்கு மாயிரம் வருவேன். மாயிரம் வந்து வீட்டுக்கு வரத்துக்குள்ளே 7 மணி ஆகிடும். 7 மணி ஆனாலும் அந்த மீனை வாங்கிக்கிட்டு போய் எப்படி விற்கிறது காசிக்காரங்களுக்கு காசு கொடுக்கணுமே இதை எப்படி சேல்ஸ் பண்ணி கொண்டு விற்கணும்னு உயிரை கொடுத்து அதை விற்று காசெல்லாம் எண்ணி மீனுக்காரங்களை குடிச்சிட்டு பார்த்தா 400 300 எடுத்துக்கிட்டு வந்து வீட்டு செலவு தான் ஆகுத வருஷம். அதை மிச்சப்படுத்தி மீனுக்கு ஒரு கடனை கொடுக்கணும். ஒரு வச்சிருந்து மறுநாள் மீன் வாங்கணும் அப்படின்னுங்கிற ஒரு கொள்கை கிடையாது. அதே மறுபடியும் வைக்கானாலும் அதை கடன் தான் வாங்க சொல்லுத வருஷம். கையில் இருக்கிற காசை கொடுத்து வாங்கிறதுக்கு வழி இல்லை. எடுவ சுற்றணும். சுற்றிட்டு மிச்சமாக இருந்தால் 100 ரூபா மீன் 50 ரூபாய்க்கு கொடுக்கணும். 200 ரூபா மீன் 100 ரூபாய்க்கு கொடுக்கணும். திரும்ப எடுத்துக்கிட்டு வந்தால் அந்த மழை டைமில் காய வச்சா புழுவாக புழுத்து போடும். அதனால கட்டத்துக்கு வரையா தள்ளி விட்டு காசே நஷ்டமாவா வீட்டுக்கு வரணும். வீட்டுக்கு வந்து அவங்ககிட்ட இவங்ககிட்ட வாங்கி அந்த காசை கடன் அடைக்கணும். இப்படியா தான் என் பொழுத போயிட்டு.
Thank you, Fisheries. I think that's worked.
Yes.
We can see your screen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your listening. So you have all heard the issues and challenges of women, especially in
Velvarji, can you put it into presentation mode, please? You can see your it's already mode. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, it is in presentation mode only. Yeah. So thank you all for listening the issues and challenges highlighted by the women involved in dry fish making and head loadings. So this is a few examples. Actually, there are many other problems faced by women involved in fisheries, especially small scale fisheries. The women role in small scale fisheries, especially in the Indian context, they are integral and inseparable part of the fisheries, I would say. So they are involved in both production and post-production activities, value chain process, and the women labor force. When we talk about the women labor force, is so critical to continue to sustain the small scale fisheries. Unfortunately, they have not seen as fishers, nor by men or by themselves. It is the reality. So secondly, the contribution of the women in fisheries are invisible, and remain, and I would say it is unrepresented and unreported in the statistical analysis. So this is also one of the issues, and these women are facing many challenges. Already the women highlighted. I am not going into the deep. I am going to my presentation highlighting the solutions which we are addressing here. So the women faced several challenges. So in order to address these challenges, the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, so through our Fish for All Research and Training Center, so we are mainly focusing on the small scale fisheries sector, and we are implementing many research and development related intervention at the ground level to empower the women in production and post-production value chain process. So based on our long presence in the field, what we found that the collective action is one of the strategy for empowerment of women in the fisheries sector. The center established the community-centered fish processing unit as an incubation center for women. So through which we can mobilize the women and mobilize the fish vendors and the head loaders into collectives. So simultaneously, we can also create the facilities like a storage facility to avoid distress sale, and also the processing facility for hygienically manage their fish products. So along with this, the capacity building, capacity strengthening on production techniques on fish product preparation, especially dry fish and fresh fish trade, then quality control and packaging, everything. So then we also train them on managerial skills and leadership skills to manage their enterprises in the in a manner in which they are empowered. So the linkage is also very critical role here. Linkages not only with the traders and marketers, banks for credit support, we can also facilitate the women to link with the boat owners to get regular supply of fish. This is also one of the major challenges they are facing due to the reduction in fish catch nowadays. So these interventions help to the women.
Velvaji, can you move the slides? We are still on the first slide.
Yeah, it is moving for me. It is moving. I don't know what the problem is there.
It is not moved at all in this main screen.
1 minute, I will again.
I think you need to close down the file and then it will open again. Then it will work.
Now we've moved on. We can see linkage with urban markets now. Is that right, Velvaji?
Yes, yes.
Okay, fine. So we missed some of the previous slides. That's okay. Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. So the second important thing is that market dynamics directly impact the household food security in poor household, especially the women-headed families. So the women actually in Indian context, the women activities are restricted to nearby local markets and street vending. So the women are inability to reach the urban and larger markets. So the center facilitate the women to link with the urban markets with the tripod agreement, like link with the marketers and traders and some philanthropic organizations. So this arrangement facilitate the women to get direct payment from the traders, and it also free from the money lenders. And another side, it helps the urban poor to get fresh fish in affordable cost. The third aspect is that the value addition. Actually, the value addition normally in poor fisher household.
Can you move the slide? Again, the slide is still on urban markets. Thank you.
Yeah. Normally in the poor fisher household, if the catch is a high value fish, it directly goes to the market. Only the low value fish come to their plate. So to improve the dietary diversity at the household level, the center facilitate to produce number of value added products from low value fishes like silver bellies, then anchovies, then small prawns, so that to prepare the value added products like powders, pickles, fish wafers, fish snacks at all. So not only the production, even the quality control aspect also the center facilitate them, train them on production stage. So these process help the women, not only the women, help the poor family in the fishery sector to get the nutritious food. The consumption level increasing, they get a nutritious product at the household level. Then coming to the another important thing is that the promoting the small scale aquaculture. It is mainly for improve the diversity in productions. I already told you that due to the over exploitation and the reduction in fish catch, the women are not getting fish for their vending and head loading and etc. Another side, during production stage, during ban season, lean season, they are not getting any fish at all. So to avoid this situation, to cope up the situations, the center promotes the small scale aquaculture in the coastal areas involving the women as a centric point. So this aquaculture, wherever the homestead ponds are there, they go with the integrated fish farming system. Wherever wetland water bodies are there, so they go with the mangroves, cultivate a fish along with the mangroves, crab along with mangroves. So this gives good income for the women round the year, especially during the ban period and lean period. So like this, we have many other examples. Due to time limit, I'm restricting this. So based on my experience, what I am concluding this my presentation, that actually the for empowerment of women, especially the small scale fisher women in the fishery sector, institutionalization and capacitating fisher women is critical. It is a crucial vehicle for empowering women in this sector. And then second is that the women should be considered as equal partners and productive participants in fishery sectors. Then only we have to improve their own and improve the women as a own and their family nutritional and also their living standards. In the post-harvesting sector, we all see a lot of reports and presentation, review articles and everything. So they have highlighted only the transportation and big processing plant kind of thing. But the women work, especially the traditional women work, is not highlighted. So what my suggestion is that we have to give full recognition to the existing role of women, like handling, head loading and marketing of fish. This is another recommendations from. Then the credit, nowadays the women are facing a lot of issues in getting credits for improving their enterprises. So this credit should be readily available to the women. Already the women demonstrated their business are viable and successful. So in this case, we have to the credit should be readily available for the women for increasing the production at the household level. Then the more government support mechanisms and policies are required for women, especially in small scale fisheries, like the public transport. The women are facing a lot of challenges getting the vehicle for transporting their fishes. So if the provisions available at the government level for public transport system is available, it's easy for them to carry out the fishes. So these transport facilities also available during the peak hours and also early morning hours. This is the area, time in which the women are going for the harbor to get the fish. So if the transport facilities the government provides, so it is easy for the women to get the fish without any hurdles. And safety equipment. So they are going for street vending and head loading, and also they don't have any safety equipments with them. So that is also one of the, I would say it is a duty of the government to extend the support to the women to produce such a kind of support. Yeah. Then the holistic approach of women health. When we talk about women health, we normally talk about infant mortality rate and
now you wind up, okay?
Yeah, it is a final.
Yeah.
So we have to when we talk about the fishery sector, and this sector is more the women facing more occupational health hazards. So we have to see that it is a life. We have to see a different approach in addressing the health issues of the women. So with this, I conclude my session. If you have any questions, I will be able to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Velvaji. And I think this conclusion leads very nicely to our next speaker, whom I would like to introduce, who is Mahfouja Begum, who joins us from Dhaka in Bangladesh with Dr. Mahfoujul Haq of Bangladesh Agricultural University today to support her. Mahfouja is the Assistant Director in the Department of Fisheries in the Bangladesh government and is currently also pursuing her PhD studies in the Bangladesh Agriculture University. In fact, she will tell us briefly, being a government officer, about the role of the government and some of the government interventions in Bangladesh to support women in fisheries sector. So over to you, Mahfouja, and I hope you can focus on your role in the government as a government officer and also some of the government interventions in relation to women fish workers. You have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Natasha, please share your video.
I can share your slides.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you share?
Let me just find those for you. See how that works. So, how does that
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, go ahead, Mahfouja. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. My topic is the role of government in supporting women in fishery sector, Bangladesh. Slide show.
Next. I think you can move to the next.
In fishery sector, my experience is I worked as scientific officer, Bangladesh Fisheries Research Institute, and 2011-12 fisheries officer, Department of Fisheries, Bangladesh, and 2012-14 deputy assistant director, Diploma Fisheries Research Institute, 2015-17 senior fisheries officer, Department of Fisheries, and in 2018-19 assistant director, expansion of aquaculture technology services up to union level project, Dhaka. 2019 to till as assistant director of Department of Fisheries, Bangladesh. As now working as a research fellow, Fisheries Technology Department, Fisheries Faculty, Bangladesh University. Next slide. My job responsibilities as a fisheries government officer. I worked in development and motivation and rehabilitation of fisheries and other disaster peoples, awareness and skill development of fishing communities from harvest to retail, to disseminate improved and modern technology through training and demonstration to focal stakeholders, to facilitate alternative income generating activities for rural poor and unemployment people for poverty reduction, to enhance fisheries resources through enacting conservation and management measures, to enforce quality control measures, and to assist insurance of health certificates for exportable fish and fishery products, to assist formulation and implementation of development projects program towards sustainable utilization of fishery resources to ensure food security, and to disseminate improved aquaculture technology through e-extension service. Next slide. As an overview of Bangladesh fisheries production, Bangladesh is blessed with fishery resources and content into freshwater fisheries and marine resources. Total production of Bangladesh 4.62 million metric ton. Yearly requirement is 4.20 million metric tons. In England captured fisheries, it is 1.3 million metric tons, and only aquaculture lead to 2.63 million metric tons. Fisheries production of fish from fisheries 0.68 million metric tons. Yearly in fish intake.
Mahfouja, sorry, instead of reading out everything, maybe you can move ahead to the experiences that you have had, because this data people will read for themselves. So if I can request Natasha to move ahead a couple of slides, you can actually share your experiences with us. Natasha, if you can move forward, please. Next, please.
Yes. In 2018 and 19, Bangladesh earns 4,088 crore by exporting 76.59 thousand metric tons fish and fishery product. Empowerment of women means the involvement of women to exercise power and capital. Only aquaculture employs more than 3 million fishers, but 60% of whom are women. In the rural and coastal areas of Bangladesh, 30% of women are directly or indirectly involved in fisheries, small-scale fisheries, primarily on aquaculture, shrimp culture, fish, engaged in small fish processing, and net gear craft making. Aging population and departure of some employees from fisheries has been a new scope for women, but a replacement for male workers and bearers of next generation of cycle. Women's economic participation and their ownership and control of productive assets, speed up of development, help to overcome poverty, reduce to inequalities, and improvement children's nutrition, health, and school attendance. Present scenario of women involvement in fisheries. Women involved in wet fish trading, fish drying, net mending, crafting gears, but never engaged in business. Community participation in women-led business as an alternative source of house areas. In coastal areas, fisherwomen are directly and indirectly engaged in activities, making fishing net, gear, repair, maintenance of the gears, sorting of fingerlings, fish processing, transportation, and marketing. Next, please. Moreover, food harvest activities of women provide a sense of economic empowerment to women, as well as improvement their economic community status. Having limited role in household decision making, limited access to resources, heavy domestic workloads, restricted mobility, heavy domestic and inequality, knowledge and skills that leading to women vulnerability. In Bangladesh, standard working hour for a week is 40 hours, but in Bangladesh, both men and women work for long hours for their livelihood, which is beyond decent hours. They have little time for leisure and entertainment and socialization. In Bangladesh, majority of poor women engaged in traditional fish processing methods, sun drying, smoking, and salting to preserve fish and ensure valuation of it. Women work was mostly confined to homestead areas due to culture, religion, and social restrictions. Equal and active participation in different social activities like livestock, poultry rearing, fisheries, post-harvest activities, and agriculture. The social status of the country is changing and coming forward to women in the developing activities outside of their homestead work. In recent years, the rate of home-led business in fisheries has significantly risen in Bangladesh. Women are more likely to devote more of their earnings back into their families. Role of women in fisheries development in Bangladesh. Women work as workers in fisheries, paid and unpaid, as workers in processing plants, responsible for family and community, as workers outside of the fisheries, as workers in business and marketing of fish and fishery products. Besides this, women contribute to a variety of stages of the value chain, and from fishing and fish farming to handling and processing. Women engaged in fisheries, generally fisher women recognized as housewife. First hour, they worked fish handling, grading, processing at home for domestic purposes, and then go out for fish collecting or retailing. And some of them are go for commercial processing, factory worker, and quality control. And few of them engaged themselves resource conservation and community work, and few of them engaged themselves fishery-related activities for tourism and sport fishing.
Lovely pictures. Natasha, can you move through them quickly? We have another minute or so left for Mafoja.
Awareness and capacity building meeting in how areas. As a part of my research work, I working in how areas, different groups of women in fishing communities. We gathered and informed that how to empowerment them. I gather information on socioeconomics and facing what they are facing in their life. Next. I mean, I developed a participatory community
maybe you
business
can
model
move forward, yeah. Maybe you
in
can move.
Howrah. Please next slide.
Mhm.
Entrepreneurship development in different areas. I given different producing value-added products in how areas. Yes. Community and entrepreneurs prepared varieties of ready-to-eat and ready-to-cook products. They marketed these products, and they after different areas, the people are tested the products, and they are very excited. I'll put here some picture. These products are marketing, online marketing. Some pictures are shown here. Challenges faced by fisherwomen in fisheries. Women in Bangladesh, little access to credit, time burden, a lack of restrictive cultural norms, lack of education skills and training. Women's contribution are invisible, highly involvement, yet lower returns, affected by social, cultural, religious roles such as seclusion, segregation, and the bullying of women in public. Isolated groups. Women are isolated groups and are deprived of many amenities of life. Eventually, they are isolated from the mainstream of society and culture. Fisheries sector is seen as a male domain. The contribution of women is poorly recognized and undocumented. Poor income, lack of any alternate employment leads to complication in life. Lack of women delegations, decision-making process intensively affect gender equity that access. Recommendation. Government of Bangladesh is taken the following initiative. Government, women share half of the population in Bangladesh, but most vulnerable group live in the rural area. Government of Bangladesh taken initiative, involvement of 30% women inclusion in all development works compulsory. Nowadays, women participation in outside works are rapidly changing due to environment and social aspects, and emphasis given later on providing job opportunities for women. Recently, women in rural areas are involved in fishing activities, earning extra money to supplement the family income to their male counterpart. Women participation in government and non-government organizations are increasing due to equal access to job opportunity.
Thank you. Oh.
Recommendation. To develop gender-sensitive programming in fisheries, design and planning will be in consultation with women, improving access to funds and credit for women, both educational status and technical skills of women improved by rising
I think it's
through
okay.
training.
It's okay.
Thank you so much. I think, yeah, I think you have made some excellent points, Mahfouza, here about, and I think also corresponding with some of the points Velvari made earlier about the recognition of women fishers, but also very importantly, the educational status and technical skills of women in the fisheries department. And maybe in the question and answer discussion session, Dr. Mahfouzul, I think you've been working a lot with this, and we would welcome your comments on fisheries education in the later discussion. So many thanks, Mahfouza. And I would like to invite now the next speaker, Ms. Lovin Kobusingye, who's based in Uganda and is the president of the Ugandan National Women Fish Workers Organization and chair of the Ugandan chapter of the African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network. While Lovin will briefly also recount some of the challenges faced by women, I think she's an entrepreneur herself and has been a co-founder of her own aquaculture business. She's also helped set up the African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network. And Lovin, I specifically look forward to sharing some of your insights with development of the AW Fish Net in Uganda and in other parts of sub-Saharan Africa. So over to you, Lovin, and welcome.
Thank you, Professor, and welcome everyone. That introduction was very, very, very big. Thank you very much. I appreciate. Yeah, I'm going to share our experience as our fishnet. Please, Natasha, you can just keep scrolling because this is just continue. Please. Yeah, continue.
So
Up
maybe
to
the first couple of slides, Natasha, you can scroll through, and I've requested Lovin to start with really talking about the network. So if we can go quite quickly to slide number 9, I think that'll be great.
Yeah, so I'm mainly going to share about our efforts to formalize the African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network. This was mainly to organize women in small-scale fisheries and strengthen their position, and hence also increase our participation. As a woman fish processor, I faced challenges of mainly doing marketing for our fish. We don't have enough education, so the negotiation powers are always low, and so we tried to do a bid to be able to have a continental women fish workers network, and we were successful with getting funds and support from the African Union Commission, and hence we did launch the African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network in Dar es Salaam in 2017. And here we realized that women really face a lot of challenges. There is lack of organizational capacity for women. There is no good governance systems to support the women in policy. They lack sufficient capital, as all the previous speakers have already mentioned. And we looked at the way we could partner or work together as women in fisheries on the continent to be able to have a strong voice and to be able to have better markets and have better products that would be competitive in the market. And here we mean economic empowerment and the ability to organize ourselves in networks that can really transform us from the previous local women to women that can trade globally across borders. So with this, after the formation of the African Women Fish Network, please continue, Natasha, to the next slide. All this is the process. Continue, please. The process of forming the network. We went through a lot of meetings, and we came to here where we realized that there were many outcomes for us to formalize and have a one voice. And here we see that there is need for us to strengthen our rights as women fishers around the continent. Then we also realized that we all face the same problems, whether you are in Kenya or you are in Amsterdam. As long as you're a woman fisher, the challenges are the same, and this was the way forward. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I will mainly focus on this because we really see that women take part in fisheries, mainly processing and trade. We do a whole lot of wholesale and retailing, but we lack the capacity because we don't do professional businesses. Here, when I say professional business, I mean a woman should have a company that is registered, that she should have an account to keep her money. She should have a registration certificate. But we realized that most of the women were trading informally without professional companies, without registered businesses. And all this was part of the reasons as to why you cannot even have a loan from the bank. So we mainly say that we would love to see a change by having all these formalized networks which can advocate and give women capacity to be able to have professional businesses which can be competitive in the market. We also realize that women are entrepreneurs. They have good access, they have no access to good market prices. Their products are not certified and they lack standards. They don't even have branding and labeling as something that is supposed to be very crucial when doing a business. So we can't keep doing business as usual. And we knew that without having all this, we cannot compete. We cannot go even to the African free trade area that we have been hearing there in the corridors of power. It cannot benefit us in any way. We cannot have any capital. We cannot even have any investment. You can't buy land because you lack a lot of things. And here, most women are being in remote areas. They provide food for families. They provide education to their children. But we are not taken really seriously. We lack all these formalities. We lack support. We lack markets, and we need to have a strong advocacy team. And we cannot do this on your own. You have to really have another group of men and women coming together to speak for one voice, having one voice that is very strong, that can speak to the policy, to the presidents, and inform them that without helping us, you are losing out, because we also contribute so much to the families. We are feeding families, we are nutritionally providing a good diet to the people at home. So here, we also look at the government to ensure that there is gender balance. Women are not really considered when it goes to policies. There is lack of capacity to occupy some positions. Whenever they call for member of parliament, there will be 5 men and maybe 1 or nothing. So we hope that with our network, we will be able to have more women having the confidence. They will be more trained to have the confidence to stand at local village level and advance to bigger positions of power. Then we also, how do you know and how can you prove what we need without data? We also look at the issue of data as something that is very, very important for us as women in fisheries to be able to back up our claim. We say we are 40% in this business of fisheries, especially in the labor force, but where is the evidence? How can we prove without statistics? And this is where we request the universities and the research. We thank NARO Uganda. They have really been very instrumental in supporting us to grow. And so we really appreciate the collaboration and the efforts but without joining together, I think they would not have come. So we advocate for working together as women in fisheries. And then the same with credit and legalization of businesses. This all comes together to make a strong women movement. So next slide, please. Yeah, this is insecurity. There are so many women who suffer at the borders while they are crossing with the fish. They are also harassed. They are carrying their fish because they lack documentation. So they are unfairly punished and charged heavy taxes, but it's because they lack information that all these taxes are accruing. But if you were to go in real life, this is not supposed to be something that they would pay, but because they don't know, they will immediately pay the money, and all this causes their businesses not to be profitable. So here we also ask a question: do we really know the women we deal with in this fishery sector? And how do we ensure that they are reached and informed on the outputs of the workshops? We always go for many workshops, but we end up just being there to talk, and we don't live with any tangible output or anything that is going to be a way forward for the women to change. And mostly they think of us when they want to have people to put on display, to showcase and do what, but when it goes to power and governance and policy formulation, they don't come to us for questions. So we feel we have a lot to contribute. We feel we have information, we have knowledge, we have indigenous knowledge, and also knowledge from the field that if we were considered, we would have a lot to contribute to the sector. We also advocate for information access. As I already mentioned, without knowing, you are always overcharged, because this translates down to the grassroots, since we are always the people on the ground. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the formation of our fishnet, as I mentioned. Next slide, please. And this is the recommendations that we had. I already talked about most of the things in my last slides. Next slide, please. Yeah, here I'm just mainly demonstrate how really unfair the women have been working in very horrible working conditions. You can see a woman climbing up just to smoke fish for a community. Also down another woman with just the fish bones. All the fish has been taken away for export, and the only available resource for us is to trade the bones, because we need to stay in business, we need to feed our children. And here we advocate for better working environment, we advocate for capital so that we can have the facilities that we deserve, and not to work like, because with this it also has health effects on the women. We are working close to the dogs, we are working to the horrible smelling areas. So we really say, no, enough is enough. How far should we go? And when will we have the African woman considered when it comes to investment opportunities? Next slide, please.
Yeah. Will you wind up, Loveen? I
Yes,
think that
I'm
was such a
actually
powerful
winding
message.
up.
Yeah.
I'm winding up here close. You can see me there smiling in a better working environment than the one you have seen before. And we also would love to have high value fish products, the women investing in high value fish products like shoes and handbags, where they can have more money other than just being in those small fish places where maybe the resources, the money they get at the end of the day is very minimal. Next slide. I think I'm almost done. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. I'm here in case of any questions. I will be very glad to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Loveen, and for that call, actually, for getting women into parliament and into decision-making bodies. I think a very powerful statement that you made at the end, and this photograph at the end is beautiful. It really shows that, you know, women can come together and make a difference. So thank you so much for your very inspirational words. Finally, we have colleagues from Ghana, Mrs. Regina Solomon and Mrs. Emilia Abaka Edu, who are the president and vice president of the National Fish Processors and Traders Association in Ghana, and Mrs. Emilia Norti, who's the center manager for the Development Action Association Training Center. I would just like to acknowledge Dr. Amy Atter from the CSIR Food Research Institute in Ghana for bringing together these very experienced speakers today, even though she herself is unable to join us. There are some connection issues, but I hope that this is really going to work. So I'm wondering if Mrs. Solomon, if you are online, and perhaps you would like to say a few words about your experiences and work with women in the National Fish Processors and Traders Association, especially on the situation of your members, and also then followed by Mrs. Abaka Edu with a few words about your own experiences. I know that you are both in two different locations. So Mrs. Solomon, if you are online, would you like to speak first? Okay, I think Mrs. Regina Solomon hasn't been able to join us. So may I request Emilia Abaka Edu, who is the Vice President of the National Association of Women Fish Workers, to please say something about your association and the challenges of the women members. Please unmute yourself, Emilia.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Amelia.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Do speak.
Yeah. I'm speaking from Ghana, and then I'm talking about the National Fish Processors and Traders Association. We have overall membership of about 13,000 across the whole of Ghana in 10 regions. And in the coastal regions, the 4 regions that forms the fishing communities, we have about 210 communities that we have the associations there. In Ghana, the Fish Processors and Traders Association came out from a challenge that the women were not able to speak out. The women were not included in decision making. So the association came together to form this formidable national platform so that the women can be able to voice out things that are challenges. For example, the fish is dwindling, and it is because the fishermen are using IUU to do fishing, overfishing, overcapacity, and this is affecting the women. The fuel cost is also high, and it is affecting the price of the fish. So the women are having so many challenges in purchasing the fish and then processing it. So the association was able to come together, and now the women have formed, they have been trained on how to handle the fish. That is proper hygienic way of handling the fish. We came to the realization that the money was also the problem. The women were finding it financial difficulty. So we have also train them and then organize them to come together in groups and then form village savings and loans accounts, which the women themselves come together and then they do little savings from the earnings that they get. And then at the end of the time, they give it out as loans to themselves with a very minimum interest rate that is helping them to be able to do what they want to do. In Ghana, with fish processors, women are the sole caretaker of the house. They take care of the children and then even their husbands. So without properly being financially sound, it makes them very difficult. And this leads some women to give themselves out sex for fish and other things. But through the association, we have been able to calm this down by the village savings alone. And then we've also trained them on how to add value to the fish, the little fish that they get, how they have to add value to it. Some do fish powder for the nursing mothers, some do shito for the secondary school going children, some do fish sausage for snacks for the children. And this value addition has been helping them. And proper packaging of fish is also one of the training that we've done. And then how their kitchen should be well maintained, how the kitchen should be avoid from insects and bacteria and other things. This training has gone on throughout the association, and the association members are very proud to be members of the association. There are also other things that we are looking forward to do. That is introducing the new technologies of ovens. That right now FAO is training the women on how to use FTT, and then USAID also is training the women on how to use Ghanaian manufactured oven that is smoke-free, which is called Ahoto. And because the cost is very high, we savings account so that they can be able to access loan from their groups to purchase those technologies. We are also looking forward for a very big market, a market that it is, like my sister was saying, African trade, so that the women will be able to have a particular place that all the African women, we can gather and then do trading. We are looking forward for that. So talks have been going on. And we also want in our communities, the marketplaces should be very decent and to be avoid from bacteria and other things. So we are introducing a multi-purpose market that where they will be able to have nursery for those children that will follow their mothers to the marketplace. They can go and then send them there for training, and then proper washrooms and other places for them, so that the women can be able to do their work and do it well. We are also doing non-formal education for the women, proper record keeping. We are doing it so we are training the women to know how to write simple words with pictures to do their recordings, and the women are very proud of it. The association have a lot of challenges, and very few ones that I want to say is in Ghana, the political realm, every thing is politicized. So when you are in association and a party come into power, then you have to join. If you don't join them, then it means whatever initiative you have, whatever you want to do, then they will say you are in opposition. So this is the very big challenge that the association is facing. But with a lot of said, I think I will ask my colleague also to add some to it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Emilia, Abaka, Edu. I think your insights, also the challenges in terms of violence, in terms of the sex for fish. I think thanks for bringing all that up, because I think some of these things are often missed or hidden. We don't realize the significance, and also all the new technologies, the markets, I think is so critical that both you and Loveen and the other speakers have raised. Before finishing, going to the discussion, I know we are running a little bit behind time, but may I request Mrs. Emilia Norti, who's Center Manager, to tell us in just a few minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, Emilia, if you don't mind, the work of the Development Action Association Training Center, especially on issues of packaging, food safety, certification, and so on. Thank you, Emilia.
Thank you. And if you could switch your camera on, Emilia, that would be great. Thank you.
Here's my camera. Yeah, thank you very much, all, and thanks for the presentation that have gone on. Development Action Association has been around for 20 years, and we work both with fisher women and then women farmers in the rural communities. We work in five regions in Ghana, in all the coastal regions and Volta, and then the OT regions, in the central and the eastern region as well. We have about 22,000 women in our associations. And we have a training center that's a Dar Fisheries Training Center that has been around for 6 years. And we have accreditation from the Commission on Technical and Vocational Education and Training in Ghana. And we have a fish processing center that is certified by the Food and Drugs Authority. And all our fishery products are also certified by the Food and Drugs Authority in Ghana. Our main focus is to help fish processors do the best practices in their fishing processing. And what we do is, in order to make our fish processors voice heard and the farmers voice heard, every year we visit the Ministry of Food and Agriculture with our women farmers, as well as the Ministry of Food, of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, with our fisher women, with some of the leaders, to meet the ministers and see the way forward for the year for farmers and for fisher women, and to know and then to share their challenges, and then whatever there is for them that year. So by so doing, the women are able to voice out their needs and then come up and get answers to whatever challenges they have. And we also, we realized that at a point, the fisheries laws were in English, and our women have low education. They can't read and understand English, but they can read and understand their local languages. So DA advocated, and the fisheries laws were translated into 5 different local languages which the women could read and understand, and that has helped them to understand what goes into the fisheries laws. Now, in technology development, technology development has gone on, and our women have been involved. In looking at issues of fish health, health in fisheries, we were looking at researchers were looking at the pH levels in fish, which couldn't pass for certification. And so this led to the innovations that were put into developing new smoking kilns for them, which would result in low pH or acceptable pH for our fish and fisheries products. And our women were involved in the testing, the development and the testing of these fisheries, of these local kilns, which is moving from the chocolate smoker to the ahoto and the FTTs, which was done with our women. So the women came up with their problems, and the researchers also look at whatever issues came up, and they use it to fabricate the new stoves. They have still not been without challenges though, but it is now at an acceptable level. But the challenges that the women face now is the costs in building the ahoto and the FTTs when the projects ended. The projects helped them to acquire some, but those who didn't get, when the project ended, they haven't been able to acquire because of the costs involved and the dwindling fish stocks that doesn't allow them to have enough fish to smoke or process for sale. And then we are also looking at helping the women to acquire certification for their fishery products so that they can enter the premium markets. Because with the little fish that is around, we know that when value is added and it is done in a hygienic way, and they have certification from Food and Drugs Authority, and then the Safe Fish certification and licensing scheme that is being done by the Fisheries Commission, Ghana Standards Authority, and the Food and Drugs Authority. Their fish can enter the supermarkets, and even they can trade across borders in Africa. So that also comes with challenges because it involves money. It involves their reorienting their kitchens, their smoking kitchens, to fit the standards that Food and Drugs Authority is looking at. And then it involves certification that also involves money. And these women don't have that much money. But we realize in our training programs that when they are given a little help, all of them are ready to change and to practice the best things that they need to do in their fishing processes. So they would need capital investment to be able to change their kitchens and then certify their product, because they have to register with Ghana Enterprises Agency, register with Food and Drugs Authority, register with the Registrar General Department to be able to acquire the certification that they need. And these things cost money. So their challenge is the capital, the money, the fund available for them to roll on to these schemes.
Yeah, so that's a really very interesting, Emilia. Maybe we can stop here because I want to take some discussion and questions, but I think you have raised such important points. The issue of credit has already come up, but I think for women to actually be able to earn, I think your issues around hygiene, safety, food safety, certification, the capital required, the complexity of the procedures, I think really there's a big task that we confront. I'm just going to turn to a few of our other guests for a couple of words. Joining us is Dr. Shakuntala Tilsted, who's Global Lead for Nutrition at World Fish. And as I already said, she won the World Food Prize last year for her work on holistic nutrition-sensitive approaches to aquaculture and food systems. And Shakuntala, I just wanted to maybe first ask you if you have very briefly any responses to some of the issues that have been raised, but also I know that you have been at COP27 recently and have been very active with World Fish and the various events relating to the UN Year of Artisanal Fisheries. And can you really tell us about how far women's voices and all these issues that are coming up have been heard in some of these these spaces. Over to you, Shakuntala.
Thank you, Nitya. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this event. And when you hear the issues, some of them are facing fisherwomen and workers, it's really heartbreaking. But there is some silver lining, and we see it, and we have been seeing it in the recent years. If we just take the UN Food Systems Summit, which we held in 2021, and which was, for me, rightly termed the People's Summit. I do think if we take Action Track 4, which had the focus on advancing equitable livelihoods and a focus on women, youth, and indigenous peoples. I think we made some headways, and we were many working in that action track that really brought out the case and had much engagement of women fishers and rakers. Then we also had, we also were able to include the fishing the fishing sector and women working in fisheries in Action Track 3, which was boost nature positive production. And it is worthwhile, you know, having a voice is extremely important. When we started with the UN Food Systems Summit, Action Area 3 only talked about land-based production systems and nature positive production on land. But we were many who pressed through and were able to get Action Track 3 to also include production systems from water. And that was extremely powerful. And many women were engaged in this. So that was, I think that was a positive sign. With respect to, and then in the last 2 years, there have been a number of international ocean conferences. And if I would take the last one, the UN Ocean Conference in Portugal in June 2022, we had many representatives from women fishers and workers sitting at the high-level panels and making their voices heard. With respect to COP27 and 26, first in Glasgow and just a few weeks ago in Sharm el-Sheikh, there is a growing recognition that the food systems must be integrated with climate change measures. And this, I think, will grow even greater at the next COP in COP28 in the United Emirates. And why is this important, especially with respect to aquatic foods and aquatic workers, is that we are seeing, as I mentioned in the chat, that aquatic food systems and aquatic food workers play an important role in both supplying micronutrients for women and young children, as we've heard, as well as mitigation of climate change with respect to greenhouse gas emissions and with respect to low levels of inputs, especially in using low trophic species, as we've heard about. So I do see a silver lining, and many of the ways forward have been given by our work, by our participants. I do think that I've talked about the global level, but I do think moving forward and moving fast, we must work at national and subnational level. And there must be close collaboration between the associations of women workers and fish workers and that of the government in looking at national budgets and in making the calculations as to how much of the budgets are used in these sectors, and especially for women. I think a very important point is also getting facilities that are women friendly. If we will take markets, transportation, trade at the borders between countries. That's extremely important. And luckily, I can see in the many fora that I sit, we have very strong and committed women who are representatives of these associations and committees of fisherwomen. And I do think that we can make a big difference as we go forward in 2023 and beyond.
Thank you so much, Shakuntala. It's really good to know actually of this growing recognition, and also that women, I think so many of the women that we've had today, like Loveen and others, really strong advocates, are represented now in these global fora. But I think you raise an important point about national and subnational levels. I would next actually like to turn to Dr. John Walakira, who's a Ugandan partner and is with the National Agriculture Research Organization in Uganda, but he's also the chair, uh, 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 the president of the Africa chapter of the World Aquaculture Society. And John, I was wondering if you would like to respond maybe to some of the comments that Shakuntala made about the importance of integrating, women's voices and issues and facilities at the national and subnational levels. And especially, I know in previous discussions with you on Uganda that there's also a huge issue of refugee women from Somalia and other places who are in Uganda, given a rising context of conflict. Of course, we talk about the Ukraine war, but there's also, of course, across our continents, there is also a lot of ongoing conflict. So if you had any brief reflections, John, would really appreciate that. Over to you,
Thank you
John.
very much. Yes. Can you hear me properly?
Yes. May I request others to mute their mics because there seems to be some background noise. I'll mute mine as well. John, over to you. John, you're muted.
You've muted yourself, John.
Yeah,
So
you've muted yourself, John.
Okay. Is that okay now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I'd like to echo the words that the previous speaker said. We need to, bring down all those development initiatives down to the community level, not at the national level only, but down to the community level. If you look at the first video that we saw, you could see that if we have all the efforts put into the community level, then you can see some transformative changes within the society. And I'm very happy that in the years that I have been in this industry for over 20 years, we are seeing now the women taking the lead in first of all, taking the lead in research, taking the lead in policies. For example, here in Uganda, you find the minister is the minister in charge of fisheries is a lady. We find the one in charge of research in fisheries is a lady. So we could see that the recognition of women is now quite taking up shape, and this has also an effect down to the roots. I really like also to echo the words of, the efforts of the women by the communities by coming up with these innovative ideas, especially during the time of the turmoil, especially during the time of COVID. You could see when they're all presented, the first issue is post-harvest losses. How are they going to deal with the issues of post-harvest losses? Now, we don't have clear policies of that, but other than research. But if this research is combined with the innovative ideas by the ladies, then we shall see a very good change. 30 to 40% of post-harvest losses is quite large. And this affects their income. This is where they depend their livelihoods on. So if efforts by research and policy, but integrating the idea of indigenous knowledge by these women, they are very bright, by the way, will at least improve the sector very well. But also the other issue of, again, also on climate change, they are vulnerable to climate extremities, floods, all those kind of things, because the environment, which Lovin told you, is the one that is affecting their products. So in doing so, I think we need also not only to access credit, but also to even for them to access insurance for their businesses. That's one key issue. We've seen insurances, covering other businesses, but we also want to see that this business, because the women's business is quite vulnerable, and it should be insured. And then the other issue is, which I also like to say is when you integrate the national issues, is we should come up with affirmative actions. For example, here in Uganda, we are talking of affirmative actions maybe for education, so that they can include the girl child education. That is very key. That will maybe probably help the women to get involved in soil development programs. And then the other issue is which we talked about is, how do we include in the refugees? Uganda is hosting around 1.2 or even above refugees, and most of them are women, by the way. I don't know the men where they are, but you find the majority are women. So they need access to proper nutrition. And I'm happy at least the people like Lovin, who have now come up with things like powdered fish and which can be incorporated into the feeds. But these women and the children really need to access high nutritious food, and fish is one of them that can be accessed very easily. We are lucky that in Africa, we are blessed with the Great Lakes, freshwater lakes and rivers, which can be harnessed and at least to increase their products for these women. The other thing which I wanted also to include is, if you look at the population of Africa, it's, for example, we are almost 1.2 billion, but that is something that we can call market. And if we could harness this population, this population to turn it to a market, then that maybe can help within our vicinities, even within the areas where we have a lot of fish. We can use that market around, the population around, to at least buy our products.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry.
Lastly,
yeah.
Yes. But I put a lot of emphasis on the integration between research and private, which is private sector led, but also addressing issues of climate change that reduce the carbon footprint within the value chain. And it has to incorporate the indigenous knowledge of especially the women. Probably that will help us to improve this sector. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. I think you've raised some very important issues. I think one is about indigenous knowledge, that we often assume when we are doing training and capacity building that the women don't know anything. But as you said, they have a lot of indigenous knowledge about techniques, practices, and so on. And we really need to build on this and sort of combine science with indigenous knowledge as researchers. And I think this is something that at NISD, we are definitely trying to do in terms of bringing together different kinds of knowledges. And I think on this point about knowledge and education, I just wanted to bring in Dr. Mahfuzul Haq from Bangladesh, who has been quite sort of giving some thought to how do we actually improve fisheries education itself and bring in a gender into higher fisheries, higher education. I think this is something we have struggled with in South Asia, but also more broadly, that within the whole agriculture and allied sectors, despite almost 40 to 50% being women workers, there is not much of a gender sensitivity in the curriculum. So, Dr. Haq, I think thank you for all your efforts. And maybe you could just make one or two brief points about your work in terms of making the curriculum, higher education in fisheries sector within Agriculture University of Bangladesh more gender sensitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao, and for organizing this great webinar. And I am enjoying the discussions, and I think the speakers who said different issues. I think many of the issues are relevant in Bangladesh. And what I see in terms of your questions in Bangladesh, we have a lot of development, particularly in the gender development areas. And university level, more than 50% students are women, are female students, and particularly in the fisheries, education. Out of 52 universities, public universities in Bangladesh, more than 15 universities are teaching the fisheries, and fisheries education is dominated by the female, but their presence in the field as government employee or private sector employees and NGOs, their presence is very low. And on the other hand, there is another big problem is that women are working in different value chain segments of fisheries sector. Like some are working in the fish processing plants, some are working in fish drying, some working in fish harvesting, what something is shown by Mahfuza. But there is no any database. There is no any exact database system in the Department of Fisheries. Department of Fisheries always publish the database of fish production, but they don't have the data. Who are the women? Where are the women? In which field they are working in? And another very important point I would like to mention. I think Dr. Shakuntala, that we have the fisheries policy that was developed in 1998, more than 24 years ago. But in this policy, there is no any word of women, no any word of gender. I think the government should change the policy, including the women and their participations in different areas in terms of the research, development, and extension. I think according to their position, to their distribution, then there should be some policies and interventions so that the Department of Fisheries officer can work in the field, can raise the voice, and women should come forward in the research and development. Like you, Professor Rao, Professor Dr. Shakuntala, I think there are some few people and the women working in this area. So we need to motivate the new generation. We have the educated female students. We need to encourage them by training, research and development, and giving the opportunities, bringing them in this sort of discussion, international discussion forum. And this whole together, we need to work together so that we can make a big change. Actually, I have no much experiences in this area, but I feel this kind of issues. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this and to share some opinions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Huck. I can see that there are quite a few questions coming through. I don't know, Natasha, do you think we can take a few? Maybe you can read out the questions and then we can request Dr. Belwaji or Loveen. I think there were specifically some questions if they would like to take a minute or so each to respond.
Exactly. I'm very aware of the time, so let me be quick. So we had a question from Jyothi Rajayan, which was about can we do anything to promote aquaculture in the marine industry and to help some of the fisher women, particularly on that. We had an interesting question also from Jyothi, which was around is the occupational health of fisher folk under-researched? What is our opinion about that? And we had, I'm just going to go through, there are just a few. And then we had one more, which was to Lovin from JSE, which was, could you show us some light on the question of illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing and what that has to do with traditional fisherwomen in Uganda? And I think, Nitya, you already answered one question about credit before, so I'll stop there if we have any brief comments on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So maybe Belwaji, if you wanted just to take a minute, I know you have also answered on the chat, but if you just wanted to have any concluding remark for a minute or so.
Yes, actually, one of the question I have to answer, the questions related to the occupational health hazard. Yes, actually, the question is very correct. Very few studies, researches are available for in relation to occupational health hazard, especially for women. Some studies, I myself did some studies on occupational health hazards of women in backwater fishes. But the thing is that few studies are available, but the solutions, so for addressing the occupational health hazards, so that part is missing. So we need more research and studies on those aspects, which is one of the gray area. So coming to the mariculture activities, yes, actually the aquaculture, we can do aquaculture in marine sector also. We call it as a mariculture activities. So a lot of intervention, especially in India, the seaweed farming is a very growing industry. So not only seaweed farming, but cage farming with fishes and other crab items and all. So one more thing is that the new emerging technology is ITMA, actually integrated multi-trophic aquaculture systems. So in which we can integrate the seaweed and fishes and other mussels and all. So it is not only address the climate change related issues, it also address the issues of nutritional aspects. So this is the things. And coming to the general view is that actually we addressed many of the issues, and leaders highlighted many aspects. The one thing is missing is that the trade, actually the fishing trade, now the fish trade is more towards business oriented. Especially the women, they are traditionally doing the fish business activities, so they don't have access to major fishing harbors or jetties and all. So they have the access to the landing center and these things. So in this aspect, we have to lobby with the policy makers to develop the landing center itself, instead of focusing only on the major fishing harbors and jetties. We have to build the capacity, build the facility in the local landing center in which the traditional women are engaging in fisheries. So with this note, I conclude my.
Yeah, thanks so much, Velvaji. I think this issue of facilities, I think specifically responding to women's needs, has also been raised by many issues. I'm wondering, Lovin, there was also one question for you, whether you wanted to quickly say something as a concluding remark, and then I need to conclude the event because we are 1 minute over time. But over to you, Lovin.
Thank you so much, Doctor. In regards to IUU and the women in fisheries, I do think I don't have much data in regards to how much of the IUU is as a result of women's participation, or it's mainly the fish industry in Uganda right now is women are only involved in the small sardine and tilapia, because we have some restrictions on the Nile perch because it is mainly commercial, and we don't have money to trade in that fish. So it's mainly the small sardines where I see a lot of problems happening, because the government is somehow trying to restrict people from fishing it to be food for the Nile perch, which is actually being exported. And I think to me that is very unfair, because it has been the source of livelihood for most small-scale fishers and the women in particular, because that is the only nutritious food that we have left for us to work and trade in. But in as regards to if we are also partly responsible for the IUU activities, I think no, because we really don't have that much fishing gear, and women are restricted from fishing, so not really. I don't think women are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lovin. I wish we had more time for question and answers and discussion. The time seems to have gone by really fast, but so much of experience, so many issues have been raised. I have taken a lot of notes, but I don't think there's time for me to really summarize. I know there is lots coming into the chat as well. Shakuntala has made some very valid points about competition, about who gets the fish. Do the poor people get the fish? Does it go for feed? What happens? How do we deal with different aspects of the value chain. Clearly, there is threat, I think, from industrial fishing and others to the small scale fisheries sector. We heard from Ghana about the dwindling fish catches due to industrial fishing, some amount of illegal catches, which Loveen has just responded to, the impacts of climate change, which John spoke about, the health risks, including the occupational health risks, which Velvaji spoke about. And I think the positive thing for me has been that just the agency of women, I think, coming together, forming networks, taking up collective action. I think this has been something which we have heard from all 4 countries, whether it's at small scale or at larger scale. I think some of the numbers from Africa, 13,000 members in Ghana, I think totally amazing. And I think this is really inspirational and the way to move forward in order to gradually, one by one, I think we need to deal with each of these problems around food loss and waste, about improvement in technologies, certification, accessibility, market access. But I think these are not insurmountable problems if we have the strength of numbers with us. So I won't summarize the rest, but I just wanted to say that we will have the recording on our website, and plus we will put out a blog based on some of the key issues. Do keep in touch for all those who have participated. I think it would be really nice to keep this contact and this discussion going. I wanted to thank all our speakers for your time today, but also for your continued engagement over several months and over the last year, actually, working with us on these issues. And wish you all the best for your work, for the communities you work with, for the research, and so on. And I hope our collaborations will only get stronger. So many thanks to all of you. And I think thanks for your patience and thanks for the effort that everyone has made, and look forward to keeping in touch. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Thank you.